So now let me introduce the next segment of our program. It is a panel that is convened by young leaders. As we are looking at Earth Day, we have to think about our future. It's, in essence, their future. We didn't treat them really well by leaving them a world with so many issues. Nevertheless, we actually, as most of you who are teaching, who are engaging with youth, you know, they actually have not only their view of the situation they're in, but they have great ideas how to move forward. So we are looking forward to hearing from young leaders here. The panel will be co-convened, or co-moderated, not co-convened, co-moderated by Kennedy Gourdine, who is pursuing a BA in sustainability with focus on international development. She's the president of the Global Futures College Council and the inaugural recipient of the ASU Canon Solutions America Environmental Equity Scholarship. Quite a mouthful, but it is an honor for her to receive that. The co-moderator is Laura McGeary, who is pursuing a master's in sustainability solutions. She's a management intern with the College of Global Futures and a School of Sustainability graduate student representative for the College of Global Futures. So please welcome Kennedy and Laura to the stage here.
Hello. Thanks for coming out, y'all. We're excited today to bring a set of highly talented and passionate students across levels and disciplines to speak about positive futures thinking and how youth are thinking about the past and the future. We hope that you'll walk away feeling empowered to take intergenerational actions that can help us maximize our positive impacts. So again, I'm Laura.
And I'm Kennedy, and let's first introduce our panelists. So first we have Timara Crichlow, a graduating sustainability master's student focused on urban sustainability, specifically urban tree equity and environmental justice.
Next up, we have Jorge Morales Guerrero. He's a graduate student of the School of Sustainability's Sustainable Energy Program, and he is now a postdoc investigating the environmental justice implications for transportation and electricity.
And last but not least, we have Daanish Tung, a master's in legal studies student with an emphasis on law and sustainability, passionate about community engagement, youth empowerment, and education, who also works with the Sustainability Teachers Academy.
So just to start out, I think we wanted to start with a little poll, a little audience engagement. So please raise your hand if you would consider yourself a sustainability practitioner. All right, you're in the right place. Is anyone not affiliated with the Global Futures Laboratory came today? All right, thanks for coming. Who here is a student? Okay, I see some students. And I will just note that there's also a Earth Day walk happening. So I would imagine a lot of the students are there and they'll join us for lunch. Any parents in the room? Parents. High and proud. That's great. Any grandparents? Okay, got some grandparents. Awesome. Raise your hand if you participated in the first Earth Day in 1970. Awesome. All right. Keep that in mind. If we have time, we'd love to hear some stories about that as well. So, awesome.
Yeah, so we'll get right into it. Our first question to our panelists would be, what is your vision of the future?
Hello. So yeah, it's kind of a tough question, but I mean, I think the vision of the future is like, I mean, this panel right here, you know, like we are all the future. All the students in the auditorium right now, we are the future. working together, I think, is going to be a big part. Intergenerational collaboration is important. Learning from our older generations on how to kind of tackle these issues, and make sure we don't make some of the same mistakes that have been made in the past, and kind of just making, I think collaboration is going to be one of the key aspects of our future.
I sometimes struggle with keeping a positive outlook on the future. I think that, is my mic not on? Ah, great. Hello? Is it on? Oh, there we go. Hi. So I sometimes struggle with keeping a positive vision of the future. Though what I keep in mind when I think about how, the climate, it's not a question of will it change, it's a question of how bad will it be. And I think that what keeps my vision positive of the future is how we will stay connected with each other and how we will support our neighbors, support each other as we see the climate changing. And I see a vision of connectivity.
I also agree about the connectivity, the more relationships. Like, I think about the future with stronger relationships, especially between groups that right now are fighting and, not finding a common ground. But I do have one thing to add. That is, during my master's studies, I found the framework asset-based community development, which for me was a big shift into like how I see others and also myself. So starting by what are my values, what I care about, what are my strengths, my skills that I can put into like solving problems. And I also see that from the communities I work with, in which I try not to have that, idea of that we need to fix people or fix something, instead of like see people and communities with their strengths, with their a lot to provide, and leverage those assets in order to solve our problems.
Thank you all. Daanish, you have a background in education, working with the Sustainability Teachers Alliance. So as Peter Schlosser noted, ASU has introduced sustainability as part of the general education requirements. I think a lot of people are excited about that. How do you see that influencing student perspectives and pathways?
Yeah, so I think it's really important that we're adding sustainability as a general ed requirement. I know for me personally, I didn't really understand sustainability and all the different issues connected until I kind of added it as a minor in undergrad. I think having that class as a general ed requirement can allow for students to understand all the sustainability issues. It can also kind of catalyze a passion for sustainability. That's how I was able to change my minor into a major, kind of go into the path I am right now, and end up at the Sustainability Teachers Academies. I think one important thing to note is that education doesn't just start in college and university. I think making sure some of this stuff is implemented at lower, middle school, high school level can be important to ensure that students are aware of some of these issues and how they can kind of come into university to be able to better understand these issues and how to hopefully tackle them. And then one other class was the governance and civil engagement class that will be added. I think that's also important to showcase the importance of local city and state governments and how they are able to tackle our local issues with unique site-based solutions.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, one thing that I would like to add is that it's great that we have all these initiatives, but at the same time, I think that we need more action. I see the practice and theory as being really important, and so I think we're talking about theory, about learning, about knowledge, but we also need to add the action component, and also have these critical lenses into what we do, what's the impact of this institution. It's looking great, right? But at the same time, we need to keep those critical lenses to see whether the impact that we are trying to do is actually happening.
And follow-up for you on that, I feel like sustainability solutions require that intergenerational cooperation and effort amongst each other, like not us on the panel today, but also you all in the audience, us working together, collaborating. So my question to you is, what do you hope for from older generations, and what might it look like for these folks to pass the baton, in a sense, in a way that makes a positive impact?
Yeah, I can comment on that. So I had this amazing opportunity a couple years ago. I worked with the city of Tempe on a project called Cool Kids Neighborhood Justice. And what we did was we gave high school students the opportunity to comment on and gave them power in the process of working on this city of Tempe climate action plan. And I think that things like that, where we specifically say to youth, not just youth, but younger youth, to give them power. And one trouble that we ran into with that project was, in order to give them power, we had to let go of some of the power that we had ourselves. And so that's something that I really hope for from older generations, is to accept that in order to empower other people, that sometimes does involve giving up some of your own power. I think that can be a really hard thing for people to do, but I think that's something that we all need to get in the habit of.
Thank you.
Yeah, going off that, I think one important thing is just listening. I think a lot of older generation might kind of just put younger generations to the side, kind of, we have the expertise, we know what we're talking about. But I think with the issues kind of plaguing our planet now, the younger generation kind of, I wouldn't say is more aware, but they're the ones that are gonna have to deal with it, and making sure that this younger generation is able to have an input on how to go about it, I think is very important.
And one last thing, I think that learning to disagree, or that know that we will not be on the same page all the time, and being open to that, and try to find common ground. I think that it's something that we need to do between generations and between nations and communities.
Kind of based off that, we have to work together. This is our planet. Everyone here, this is our planet. We have to work together to make sure, it's habitable for however many future generations that are going to be on this planet.
I'm wondering, so Tim had a great story kind of about seeing that playing out. Do you, either of you have sort of, whether it's something you were involved in or something that you've seen on the internet or social media, about effective ways to kind of not only get the message out so people are aware of what's going on, but also, propelling action?
So one thing that we do at the Teachers Academies is with different grants and funding, we've installed school gardens with rainwater harvesting. So we've had students kind of engaged in the entire process. They're there designing the garden, choosing the different plants, and installing the garden themselves with some help from different construction companies, different contractors. And I mean, just seeing the faces on some of these students, they're actually interested in this type of stuff. They're not, they're outside, they're doing some work that is changing their school. They're seeing the change, and they'll be able to see the change in the garden. As they get older, they'll be able to see it kind of develop into a full garden that offers, shade for these students when they're waiting in line during the summer for their parents to come pick them up in 110-degree heat. They have, they're able to implement this change themselves, which I think was just really awesome to see.
Adding on that, there's a place called Spaces of Opportunity. You might have know about it in South Phoenix. Every Sunday, there's a gardening class. Blanca, she's a friend of mine, and she's always, teaching indigenous knowledge and how to, or encouraging us to produce our own food in our backyards, even in pots when we don't have land. And I see, kids coming, learning about that, and so I think that it's a great space for us to learn from older generations and also do something.
That's awesome. I'm going to break my moderator role a little bit because I am a management intern. I work on the recruiting and outreach team for the College of Global Futures, and I just want to echo exactly what you both have said, what you all have said, really, is that I can see such a difference when I go into a classroom, I'm giving presentations about our degrees, when I'm talking to a class that is very, theory-based basic science, like students are aware of these issues, but they don't have the same hope and joy and interest that I see in students who happen to be in electives where the teachers really care about these issues and they're driving them forward and they're applying for grants and opening gardens. I've seen also some incredible stuff and, students being really passionate about these issues. So, yeah, kind of puts the pressure on the teachers and, but I've seen a lot of really great stuff. Jorge, how has looking to history, you kind of started to mention it a little bit, helped shape your understanding of sustainability issues? How do we educate younger generations to think about not only the future, but also the past?
Yeah, so, we always hear these land acknowledgements. Today we didn't have one though, but normally we would have one video or something that tells us who was here before us, right, like as settlers. And so in one internship, as part of the earth science, science, ESA, Nancy Grimm is part of that, and also Michelle Hill. So during that summer, we were thinking about how do we do conservation efforts in the Salt and Gila rivers, and kind of like think about the future. But we were like, we are not really aware what happened in this land. We know that Akimel Autumn and Pipash communities were here, but we really don't know what happened. And so if you go to the city of Phoenix, you will see that when they tell their story, they talk about a city that comes out from the ashes. City, like the Phoenix, as in like this mythological thing that emerged from something that was dead, right? And so there's a big gap between the time of the Hohokam, where like we have a canal here that is part of their legacy. We have them, like they acknowledge their system, and because we're using it today, but then there's a big gap between the 1500s and the 1850 when white people or settlers arrived. And so, just thinking about the narratives that we tell about how our institutions came to be, I think is really clear. It's key and important in order to build the relationships that we want. And so what we found is that over that gap, the Akimel Autumn and Pipash communities that were living here were really friendly, were welcoming, and a lot of what they put, say, everything so that we are here today. Yet the narratives do not link the legacy of the Hohokam as being the ancestors of the current Akimel, Autumn, and Pipash communities. And I'm just gonna say that as the city of Phoenix was flourishing and growing, indigenous communities were facing water issues, hunger, because settlers were using their water. And that's something that I've never heard about, It was only when we went to do this lit review that is written by settlers anyway. So imagine if we are actually asking indigenous communities here about the history and what happened. And so I think that that's something that is missing. And if we're gonna think about the future, we have to acknowledge that and invite them to be part of the conversation, or even us going there to be part of their efforts to change this. Sorry.
No, yeah, thank you for your insight, please.
And to go back to talking about the general studies requirements, I remember I also did my undergrad here at ASU in the School of Sustainability, and we learned a lot about the history of the sustainability movement, but I don't remember learning all that much about the indigenous history of sustainability. And so I think that as we're thinking about this shift towards sustainability learning and having it integrated throughout the university, that indigenous knowledge and also environmental justice are things that we're going to need to consider as we're writing those courses.
speaking on like environmental justice, thinking about the future and building relationships, I would love to talk about like social media and its aspect in that. As we live now, we're living in a very hyper-connected but disconnected, in a way, that type of world. So what do you guys think this means for activism and also just social relationships in general?
I think that social media plays an unfortunate dual role in this space, in that it can be incredibly politically polarizing. At the same time, though, we see that many social movements, especially youth-led social movements, we see that the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as other protest movements going on today, are largely mobilized by social media. And social media is a way that we can stay connected with not only, we can stay connected with exactly what is going on the ground. And so I think that we have this opportunity with technology and with social media to have it play a positive role in activism, but I think we need to definitely be careful about the role that it plays in polarization.
Yeah, kind of on a similar point, on these social media apps, you can see, climate issues impacting, people all over the world. You can see, currently, I know something I've seen recently was the flooding in Dubai. That's something that we can see, we can see videos of that. We can see, drought impacting the Sahara Desert, everywhere. You can see all of these climate issues actually impacting people. And so it's more visible, but at the same time, it's also, you can see some of the actions being taken to address these issues from local organizations, local groups. So seeing some of these actions taken, you can kind of take some inspiration from that as well and see how it might work in your region. But so being able to see everything has changed a lot as well.
And I think that, we're talking about, these new courses, and I think that the university does a good job at creating or incentivizing at least critical thinking. And I think that that's a strength that we have, and we should utilize those lenses to filter what we see in social media. Like now, it's an imperative to think about twice of retweeting, tweet about, and so I think that that's a component that needs to be part of our activism in social media, for sure.
Thank you all. Finally, what do you imagine or hope Earth Day will look like, say, 15 years from now in 2040?
I think a couple years ago, ASU had a motto, Earth Day every day for an Earth Day. That was a thing, right? Yes, thank you. And so I hope that Earth Day in the future isn't a big event, because it doesn't have to be, because we just make that a part of our everyday practice.
I think that the inclusion of more indigenous voices needs to be part of Earth Day in the future, for sure.
Yeah, I think something that I had kind of talked about before all this happened, long time ago, there was the Nickelodeon Day of Play, which was kind of like a big thing for children, getting them to at least go outside, for the day and enjoy it. I think something similar along that vein could be a way to get the children more involved, kind of have maybe some school activities for children, just having more involvement with the youth in Earth Day, I think, is an important aspect of it as well.
Yeah, thank you all. You guys, it was such an insightful conversation. You all are amazing individuals. Before we turn it to the audience, is there anything last words you'd like to share, anything like that?
I think kind of we've brought up a lot about how indigenous knowledge is extremely important, and getting those voices in the conversation as well is extremely important. I had the privilege to go to the Tahana Atom Community College a few weeks ago and kind of just see what they have going on. They have a big rainwater harvesting system going on there, where we were able to learn some from them, and I think just that information that they have is extremely important in helping us address the issues that we deal with here. I mean, they've been here since time immemorial. They've lived on this land for countless generations with a minuscule amount of the resources that we have today. I think if we take information from them, I think we would be able to provide the same, comforts for everyone.
I want to say that let's act. Let's leave the classroom for a while and get our hands dirty and build relationships.
I think that it's easy to, when we think about climate futures and especially environmental justice, to assume that we know what people need and what people want. I think that a big thing I want people to take away is that we need to ask people what they need, what they want for the climate future, and really deliver on what our most vulnerable populations, what they need.
That's great. And I think we're going to get some of those insights today, too, with some of our further programming. So we have about 15 minutes before we'll take a short break. We want to open it up for questions from you all. But I want to welcome, invite, and challenge you all. We'd like to ask you a question. How do you create more positive global futures? And or if you have an exciting Earth Day blast from the past story to share, we'd also love to hear that. So we'll open it up.
So thanks first for a great discussion. Really appreciate your voices in this conversation. Dave White here with Global Futures. The blast from the past. So I was at the 20th anniversary of Earth Day on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. when I was an undergraduate student studying at nearby George Mason University. And a group of my friends and I went down to the National Mall the night before because we were so excited to be part of this very large demonstration. And there was also a concert. If anybody remembers the Indigo Girls, that was like the lead act was playing. And so we actually slept on the mall right in front of near to the Capitol, and woke up in the morning with several 100,000 people behind us as the people had begun to fill in. So that was a really influential and important moment in my journey in working in this area. So just wanted to share that with you.
Thanks, Dave. That's amazing.
Dave was closer to fine.
Well, I was also in Washington, D.C. I don't know, Dave, if it was the same concert or the same day, but it might have been around that time. I don't remember the Indigo Girls, but I was in Washington for an Earth Day in the early 90s. Dave, was that 92? 90? Yeah, I might have been there. But my question for the group here is, I'm really inspired by the comments. I'm curious, people often attribute how they got to where they are because of a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, or an event. I'm just curious about the three of us, or maybe all five in front of us that are in front of us here. Was there an event that really spurred your interest in this? Was there a teacher? Was there a course? What was it that got you to where you're sitting in front of us today?
I have always been a militant recycler. I have been interested in sustainability my entire life, but when I started as an undergrad at ASU, I was actually an electrical engineering major because I wanted to develop sustainable energy. And then I realized I wanted to be more on the social side of sustainability, and my roommate my freshman year was a sustainability major, so she played a really big role in that shift for me. So I think for me, it was a peer who was really influential for me and getting me on that track to being so enmeshed in sustainability.
Yeah, so in high school, I was part of the gardening club, and so, I mean, not like a big aspect of sustainability, but it's something that catalyzed me into becoming more interested and adding it as a minor. And then one class that I really remember was sustainability and human rights, and it kind of just showcased how interconnected sustainability issues are with other like like a lot of human rights issues. And I think one subject that really pushed me was kind of the different cobalt mines going on in the Congo and stuff, and all across the world, and how these mines are kind of just being depleted of resources. And meanwhile, these vulnerable populations are being forced to kind of work in these mines and are just exposed to toxic chemicals, and like they're just forced to work in these mines for minimal support. And that was kind of like pushed me to becoming on the sustainability pathway.
And in my case, I guess that there were many things influencing me to be here. But one of the key ones was after high school, I didn't know what to study yet. And so I spent a year volunteering in Rarámuri communities in the north of Mexico. I am from Puebla, so I grew up in a city, and this is rural Mexico with the majority of the population is indigenous there. And that was really eye-opening for me to realize all the privilege that I had as someone who spoke Spanish, someone who didn't have an accent in Spanish and all of that. And I think that it was only by seeing the differences that I was even more, I wanted to continue a career that at least tries to change the inequality in the world. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but at least I'm trying.
Took me a little bit to find my place to here, but as I've been in my first year of my master's program and become more embedded in the Phoenix community and just seeing how much stuff is going on that I lived here for 5 years and was kind of oblivious to, it's actually made me feel a lot more connected to my upbringing in Tucson, and just realizing naturally how sustainability was a little bit more a part of my upbringing than I had realized, being in Tucson, which has been, when we're just talking like, tax dollars and resources and things like that, we've had to be a little bit more clever with our resources. And I think culturally, people in Tucson tend to think about these issues more just in the general public, being really connected to the University of Arizona and their focus on natural sciences. That's a huge part of my upbringing and experiences I got to have throughout my education. So a lot of reflection and ties back to that. But my first big sort of sustainability gig was when I was in my undergrad. I worked on the move out effort to reduce and divert waste. And that was just so much fun because I found the coolest clothes and I loved it. It was a paid job, it was great. But then I was like, wow, this was incredible. We should all be doing this everywhere, and creating more circularity, and we were donating goods to different organizations. And so that was, I don't know, an energy that I wanted to feel again. And so now I'm here and it's exciting.
I'll go last. First, I can't talk about inspiration without shouting out my mom and dad. They're the best. They're not here right now. But my mom's a principal. My dad's an engineer. So I spent most of my childhood, doing those summer break packets and also just like shooting off rockets in my free time. So I spent a lot of time doing STEM things. In high school, I had the opportunity to do a research project. And I'm originally from Maryland, a little bit farther from here than a few people, but yeah, I see some Maryland people. But I was able to do research on how we can use native plants to the Maryland region to try and remediate some of the issues with the nitrogen and phosphorus runoff in the Chesapeake Bay. So since doing that, a lot of sustainability and just environmental research, I was like, okay, I want to go into environmental science. Then I found this program where it's like more about that innovation and like getting to talk to people and learning about like the other aspects of it and learning about the social networks embedded within it. That's why I came here, and I've loved it ever since. Any more questions? Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Mic is on. Okay. So it's kind of a two-part question for you. I know that there's a lot of emotional ties that come with studying and working in the sustainability field. So one, I wanted to ask, how are you feeling? And two, I wanted to ask where you find hope and where you find optimism when you're working alongside something that can be a little emotionally draining.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, seeing all these just climate issues plaguing the planet. I think some of the hope I get is just from like all these people in this room, all the people that I've worked with, there are people that have the same like mindset as us, they want change. Working with these people has like, shown me like there are people passionate about wanting to have change, make sure that our planet is sustainable for future generations. And I mean, just seeing like everyone has different projects they're working on, but it just all has like, the same end goal of everyone wants the same, healthiness for our planet and our generations. So that's kind of where I've been able to get some hope from, at least.
I will have a similar answer. For me, the sense of community, having people around you that supports you and you support them, I think it's key. Again, also the asset-based approach for me is key, because sometimes when we are learning about how systems of oppression work, we feel we don't have anything to do, or if we're gonna do something, it's almost for nothing, right? But then if you're thinking about, I'm utilizing my own skills, my talent, my assets, and we're doing small changes in my community that are tangible, like this garden, for example, like going there in the morning, even though it's hot, it's kind of like fresh there. And so, it's just having the opportunity to get you in the community and being part of it. That's what it's good. It's work for me.
I am feeling stressed out. Thank you for asking. Climate anxiety is very, very real, and I see it in a lot of my peers. I feel a deep sense of duty because I see that a lot of the negative impacts of climate change are going to largely impact the communities and individuals who are already most vulnerable. And so I see people who look like me struggling, and I am very lucky that I have a lot of privilege that got me to where I am today. So I feel a lot of duty to use that privilege to help those very people. But that can be really stressful, and it can be a downer sometimes. But I find hope I have little siblings who are 12 and 7. I find a lot of hope in them. They're very cute. I see that they want to help, they want to do things, they want to plant a garden, and planting a garden is inherently a hopeful act. And so I get a lot of my positivity and my hope from younger generations.
Thank you, and thank you for your question. We have time for one more. Okay.
Thanks. I'd like to ask panelists, this last panelist here, you mentioned something and I wasn't sure that I quite grasped it all. It's after you said I'm going to move off my moderator piece for a bit, and you were talking about the undergraduate students and an element of hope. Could you just re-say that again so I hear it? I want to understand.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for asking that clarifying question. So as part of my part-time job to fund my graduate studies, I'm on the recruitment and outreach team for the College of Global Futures, which means we're mobilizing ourselves by going into high schools. So we're talking to high schoolers in the Valley, and we, go to all high schools, whatever, public schools, charter schools, private schools, wherever they want to hear what we have to say about opportunities at the College of Global Futures. And so we're always working on how do we improve that message and thinking about, okay, what response are we getting? Well, how can we make this more interactive? How can we, especially going to all these different, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, they all have different, needs. And my point there was really you can see in different communities different reactions to what we're saying, right? And there's that educational piece of here's what's happening in the world. Here's why we exist as a College of Global Futures, the Global Futures Laboratory. Here's what we're doing about it. Here's what you can do about it. And that's a tall order for like a 40-minute presentation or less, you know? So my point was when I go into classrooms where things are going on, there's a community garden, they're making little models of photovoltaic cells, you know, whatever it is. When they have a hands-on opportunity to be taking action, even in a small way, I see a big difference in sort of the attitude or the way those students carry themselves and respond to what we're offering, compared to students who are maybe in a more theoretical general studies class and maybe they're being inundated with PowerPoints of all the terrible things that are going on in the world, right? And they might, I mean, I've literally asked like, hey, what are some of the things going on in the world and what do you think about it? And, you know, I've gotten the response of, yeah, we're kind of screwed here and like, there's no hope. So, and that, you know, what do you do in that situation? So just the differences that I've seen in the community, and let's make sure all kids have access to being able to do even small things and see themselves being a difference maker, right? So that they come to ASU and want to make an impact and feel that they can make a positive impact in their, you know, career and life going forward.
I know I said that was our last question, but we actually have one more. So, yes, please.
Hi. I really enjoyed what you all said about intergenerational knowledge sharing and also centering youth voices in this movement. My question for the panelists is, if you could maybe speak to a policymaker or maybe even executive at this university, what solution would maybe you propose to increase centering youth voices in like positions of power in the climate space?
Not an easy one to end on.
I think it comes back to what I was saying before about giving up power. It can be a really hard thing to do, but I think that I wouldn't have a very specific thing that I would ask of an executive here at ASU, but it would be that if we want to see more youth and student involvement in, you know, making decisions here at the university, it would require people in higher power positions to accept that shifting power dynamics really involves sometimes doing things you don't want to do and sometimes involves people making decisions in ways that you don't expect.
Yeah, it's hard. I think Timara put it really good, but I think one thing is just give us a chance, you know, give the younger generation a chance. You know, we may not have as much knowledge or information, but the older generation can pass that knowledge off as like, you know, we're working together kind of building up the younger generation, and then, you know, once they're able to like kind of do some things on their own, having them take over, like kind of, you know, giving them a little bit more power, like as they're able to like continue to learn, you know, they're just able, you know, giving us the chance to learn and like build up this power, I think is something like I would propose, I suppose.
I think, well, I'm a big fan of like, you know, discussions, focus groups, you know, places where we can make our voices heard and come up with solutions and ideas. So probably would be my solution or my suggestion will be, let's start like a youth panelist session where we can, or not panelists, more like an open dialogue, kind of like roundtable dialogue to kind of like find solutions. If we are really interested in that, let's start it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd also like to ask you, would you have anything you'd like to answer your own question to say?
Yeah, I think you all make really valid points. And as like a student myself, I think there's a lot of space for young people to use their voices in centers in spaces of power. I know a lot of young people are building youth climate coalitions and are involved in the policymaking process in any space that they can be. And there's a lot of excellent student positions here at ASU as well for young people to learn more tactical sustainability skills. But I think all of your points are very valid. That I also think that there's like this negative narrative that young people are unwilling to cooperate with older generations, but I think the intergenerational dialogue is really important in being able to solve these issues. So thank you.
Thank you.
Incredible. I think that's exactly the point that we were hoping to get across and encourage people of all generations to share their stories, share the good and the bad and the hope for the future and take action. So I think next up, we have a 10-minute break. So please be back here at 11 o'clock. We're going to be talking about the Climate Action Almanac and kind of putting some of these thoughts into action to see what has actually been going on at ASU. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Happy Earth Day.